Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Zach's Tech Talk Tuesday. My name is Ryan McQueeney, and today we are going to be chatting about what very well could be the biggest tech acquisition of the year, and that is, of course, IBM's $34 billion purchase of Red Hat. Just from a monetary standpoint, a size standpoint, this thing is going to be hard to top. The acquisition is, by and large, IBM's largest deal ever. It's actually the third biggest acquisition in the history of U.S. technology. If you include the AOL Time Warner merger, would only be bested by the $67 billion merger of Dell and EMC in 2016, and then a $41 billion deal between JDS Uniface and SDL in 2000. So yeah, we're talking historic here. IBM is paying for the deal in all cash, valuing Red Hat at about $190 each. Red Hat shares at about $190 each. That's a steep, let me repeat, steep premium to the roughly $117 a share the stock closed at on Friday. But if you believe what both companies are saying about the deal, it might just be worth it. We're going to get into that rhetoric in a second, but first, let's get our footing here. IBM is, of course, IBM, one of the largest information technology companies in the world, and it needs a very limited introduction. But what is Red Hat, and why does Big Blue think it's worth a 60% premium to what investors had valued it at? Well, let's dig into that a bit here. Red Hat is based in Raleigh, North Carolina. Shout out to the Research Triangle. It's down there with few other notable tech, video game, and pharmaceutical companies, a little interesting area of the world. Founded 25 years ago, does about $3 billion in revenue a year, has about 12,000 employees throughout the world, and is an S&P 500 component. So this is no small fish we're talking about here. The $34 billion price tag probably was your first indication. But, just from the initial reactions, I was getting the sense that certainly those in the tech world know Red Hat, but it's possible that the average retail investor of the world, maybe this company was not quite on their radar. So what does Red Hat do? It's known for its open source software, which means it gives away the source code of its core products and allows other developers to build and customize on top of what it itself has made. Open source was once balked at by the broader software industry, but the likes of Red Hat, GitHub, and eventually Android made open source very popular. Of course, let's remember Microsoft just bought GitHub a few months ago. Big deal for Microsoft, a big deal for GitHub. It was a big deal for the open source industry, or just open source as an idea. I think it was like $7.5 billion there. We talked about that on this show when it happened, and our focus there was really what it meant for Microsoft as a software company, not traditionally an open source software company, kind of endorsing the idea of open source and adding it to its business model. But this is not really IBM going out on the streets and hailing this as a win because of open source, or a win for open source. Instead, this is really being promoted as something that can change the face of the cloud computing industry. Red Hat, however, is not a cloud computing host. It is, however, a factor in the cloud computing business, as many of its products are designed to make life easier for companies that use cloud technology. This manifests itself in a bunch of different ways because Red Hat has a large portfolio of different products and services. But in the simplest of terms, Red Hat has grown its library of products that help companies build their own cloud-like platforms and or manage goings-ons across multiple cloud hosting services. I guess we'll get into the specifics in 1 second. But this means that Red Hat is an asset in the hybrid cloud business, which, as the name implies, is a combination of the private and public clouds. So we, of course, know the major public cloud players. This is Amazon, this is Microsoft, this is Google, this is Oracle. When we talk about Amazon Web Services or Microsoft Azure, those are public cloud platforms. And those platforms allow organizations to purchase access to that infrastructure and access it typically just through the internet without developing their own data centers and their own personal cloud infrastructures. Then, there's the exact opposite of that, which is the private cloud, which is an infrastructure built or designed for one specific entity. From my understanding of the timeline of things, private cloud was, the original cloud computing enterprise technology. Public cloud has been the new growth market. That's been more the trend. But this hybrid cloud idea, which is admittedly a very broad idea, as it can kind of encompass a bunch of different things, and we'll say some examples in a second. It's also been growing too. If you look at the public cloud and its ability to save companies and organizations money, the private cloud and its usefulness in very specific situations, the hybrid cloud gives you a little bit of the best of both worlds in situations where you need it. What are those situations? Well, as I said, hybrid cloud really refers to any commingling of the two types of cloud infrastructures. It could mean that a company is paying for public cloud because its private cloud infrastructure can't quite meet temporary capacity needs, or it might mean a company feels that certain sensitive information needs to stay in its private cloud while the bulk of work can be done on the cheaper public cloud side. As I said, there's really tons of ways that this can play out, and I think people just use hybrid cloud to describe any kind of combination of the two. But what we know now is that IBM wants to be the number one hybrid cloud platform in the world. I want to cite this Wired report that covered the initial news of the IBM Red Hat deal, which then cited a survey commissioned by cloud management company RightScale, which earlier this year put IBM as the fourth most widely used cloud service. That was behind Amazon, Microsoft, and Google. I believe that Oracle was fifth in that same survey. Either way, though, fourth, while not a horrible position to be in, is disappointing for IBM because it's also growing slower than the top three. Of course, those three are the big, massive public cloud players. They're key growth catalysts for those three companies. Google has its own suite of products I don't think you'd necessarily put in that category. Same for Microsoft, but we know Amazon Web Services is huge and growing rapidly still. So I think IBM is looking at its fourth place position. It's going, okay, maybe we're already beat on this public cloud pure play area. What can we do that is us, that is purely big blue, that we are the leaders in? That's, according to this deal, going to be hybrid cloud. Just all the way down to the very specifics of Red Hat is actually going to become a subsidiary of IBM's hybrid cloud division. Red Hat CEO Jim Whitehurst is joining IBM's senior management team and going to be reporting to that company's CEO, Ginny Rometty. Very, very bullish sentiment immediately coming out of IBM about what Red Hat can do to the business. From Rometty herself saying, quote, "The acquisition of Red Hat is a game changer. It changes everything about the cloud market," end quote there. Obviously part of a CEO's job is to drum up hype about these types of things. So we expect this type of excitement. That being said, to go out there and say it changes everything about the cloud market, certainly bold, certainly ambitious, certainly an interesting tone to be taking. Keeping in mind the fact that it is part of a CEO's job, though, did want to take a quick look at what the analysts were saying in the wake of the news. Typically, when these types of major deals happen, analysts either had a sense that they were coming or didn't have the sense they were coming. Either way, they try to get a first reaction type of note or research report out there for clients. My immediate sense was that this was relatively surprising, whether it all came together quickly or whether the sources on the inside simply were able to maintain secrecy and not have this thing leak out. Either way, though, there was two kind of overarching tones or overarching kind of themes with the analyst reactions to the news on Monday morning. And that was, A, what does this mean for the broader cloud space, this kind of niche cloud market, companies operating within this broader cloud industry, but maybe not having a larger home like we've now seen Red Hat go to. So basically what I mean there is analysts writing about, okay, what's the next company acquired here? We had Wedbush analyst Daniel Ives saying this was the tip of the iceberg of a major cloud consolidation period. Raymond James analyst Michael Turitz, adding to that same sentiment, says sees a larger potential for even more cloud deals in the near future, saying, quote, especially post the recent pullback in tech valuations, this deal could spark consolidation of other large cap category leading at scale vendors. So just to kind of explain what I think Raymond James means by that, it's kind of what I was just saying. These are large cap category leading at scale vendors. So these are not startups per se. These are actual developed companies with a product. They've got their niche and they're leading that niche. So, certainly carrying some weight, carrying some clout in the business. That's different than maybe saying, okay, this is going to spark spending lower down in the chain, more spending in the startup world or in the, even in the seed funding world. The analysts are saying, no, this is going to make other companies go out and get similar at-scale companies. So we'll see if that trend plays out. Obviously, these tech companies with the recent tax cuts certainly should have some cash to spend on deals like this. When these tax cuts went through, it was, a huge talking point was we're going to see some consolidation here. I don't necessarily know if we saw it to the tune that we thought we would, but maybe this is the avenue it will manifest itself in. The other kind of overarching theme in the response to the deal being announced was this a good idea or a bad idea for IBM, for Red Hat? I think with that type of premium for Red Hat, you're going great work. Definitely delivered some value to the shareholders there. For IBM, you're thinking that's a big price tag. That's a big premium. Are you on the right track here, or did you just overpay? A couple quick hitter reactions. Nomura's Jeffrey Caval saying, quote, as transformative as it gets. Wedbush's Dan Ives, who we talked about earlier, called it game-changing. KeyBank's Arvind Ramnani said it would shake up the league tables. Cohen's Greg Moskovitz said don't rule out a bidding war, basically implying that this is not a done deal yet. Of course, shareholders still need to vote on this, as we've seen in other recent deals, kind of in the tech space, in the telecom and media space, with Disney and Fox. Other people can certainly try to sweep in and make a better offer. I think with a premium like that, IBM has intentionally tried to protect themselves from such a maneuver, but a bidding war could be out there if one of these other tech companies, one we've mentioned, maybe some we haven't mentioned, doesn't want to lose this big of an advantage in the cloud market. So we'll see. I think the general consensus was that might have been an overpayment, but if you overpay for something that really sets you up, if you overpay in the near term for something that really sets you up for success in the long term, that could be something that shareholders forgive down the line. I like Red Hat. I think it struggled as of late, lost like 14% in one day just a couple months ago because it said its results were going to be lower than expected, kind of revised the guidance. It's kind of gotten caught up in this evolving nature of the cloud. As I mentioned, the shift to public, less so reliance on maybe some of the core products Red Hat had been familiar with, but far from a struggling company. Definitely a really interesting company with a lot of potential growth. I think it fits with IBM's vision. I'm interested to see where IBM goes next with this all in mind. Are they going to be that world beater hybrid cloud behemoth that they're kind of making it seem like they're going to be? we'll see. But, this is huge, without a doubt, and definitely a story we'll have to watch continue to unfold, as we get confirmation and votes, see if another bidder comes in, that type of stuff. So that's going to do it for us this week, though. As a reminder, if you feel that we missed something or if you want us to cover a different story, feel free to shoot me an email at podcast@zax.com. Make sure to check out all of our other audio content at zax.com/podcasts. And remember to subscribe and leave us a rating on Apple Podcasts. As always, thank you for listening to the Zax Tech Talk Tuesday show. We'll see you next time.